Yeah.
I was interested in how you got to Akron. You know.
Well, when I graduated from high school, I graduated in 2 courses, secretarial and accounting. And I rather thought I would follow accounting. I really thought that's what I would do. And so I got a job right away in a cutlery shop there at Uncle Claus. And I worked there during the summer, and I could make $3.42 a day on piecework. My uncle happened to be foreman of the department I got into. I didn't know I was going to be in there, but when I went to work, you know, I went there for a job, and okay. And then when I went to the department, here with my uncle was the foreman. So anyway,
what was his name?
Uncle Will Karlovitz. And he told I could make $3.42 an hour. I was cutting the teeth in clipper blades. You know, they had hand clippers at that time. And so my job was with a milling machine, cutting the teeth in the clipper.
Was that pretty good money comparatively?
Well,
was that average?
Yeah, it wasn't good, you know. But and it was piecework, and he told me, he said, well, if you turn in more than $3.42, they'll come along and they'll cut the rate. So he said. So anyway, the fellow from Sandusky Business College came around, the president, to the house, and he was wanting me to come down there and get a brush-up course and so on, you know. And I thought, you know, probably accounting. He said, well, he said, right now, he said, we have much greater demand for male secretaries. At that time, it was male secretaries was the big thing. So he said, you know, I know that we can place you readily, you know, as a male secretary. Come down and get a brush-up course. So I went down there and...
to Sandusky.
And in Sandusky, yeah. I boarded down there with, well, a couple of other fellows. One was my cousin, and one was Nanbeck, whom I...
What kind of a building did you stay in? I mean, what?
There was a
boarding house?
Boarding house, like, yeah. And I stayed there, and I was set up to busboy in a restaurant there.
So you worked?
I worked, yeah.
You were 18?
I was, well, actually 17.
17?
Yeah, 17. So I went to Sandusky Business College for 2 months. And by that time, I was as good, you know, as their graduates in secretarial.
In 2 months, you had covered what?
I could take 112 words a minute in shorthand, you know, and so the president called me down. He said, well, he said, you know, you can do what our graduates can do. He said, I think, you know, we're ready to be placed, you know. So he dictated a letter to me, and I transcribed it, you know, and it was saying that I was ready to, you know, for a job. And he sent it to, I think, 12 different places in northern Ohio here, you know, Cleveland and Toledo, and one went to Goodyear. And right away I got a call from Goodyear, that they called the university, saying that they needed 2 male secretaries right away. And so I was supposed to go with another fellow and come down to Goodyear, but he never called me or anything. So I came down to Goodyear, and...
How far was that a long trip for you? Had you been that far away from home before?
No.
I mean, this is 100 miles or 96 miles. And had you ever been that far away from home before?
No, I guess not.
So that was the longest trip you'd ever taken.
Yeah. So a neighbor fellow had been to Akron here during the war, you know, working down here. And he knew something about Akron, and he was a carpenter. He wasn't working then. So he said, my dad said, well, I'll see him if he'll go with you, you know. So he said, yeah, he'd go with me. So he came, and he...
How old was he?
This was an older fellow.
Yes, I mean.
I don't know.
I mean, like in his 30s or 40s?
Oh,
or?
he would be in his maybe 50s.
Okay,
you know.
so he's an older man.
Yeah, he was an older man. So we drove down, drove my dad's car.
What kind of a car was that?
A Ford. Ford, four-door Ford.
What year was that then? What kind of a car?
Gosh.
What year car would that be?
I don't know what year that would be. Well, this was in 26.
Yeah.
And so it would have been...
And it wasn't a new car?
No, it would have been like a 22 or 23 or something like that. And so we came down and...
How long would that take?
I don't remember at that time, but you see there was some parts of the road that were just, one-way road. There was one area... Was
it all paved?
Where there was one side of the road was paved for a certain distance, and then it changed over to the other side. And if you had to pass somebody, you had to get off into the mud.
I see. So only part of it was paved?
Only part of it was paved.
And so if two people were, then you had to take the unpaved part or get off?
You had to get into the unpaved. So it took longer and...
I mean, like, would we say 3 or 4 hours?
Yeah, I would say like probably 3 hours, to get down here. So anyway, I came down, went to the employment office, and they gave me tests and so on, and said, yeah, okay, we'd like to have you start tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, this was...
I mean, this guy drove down with you. You're just expecting an interview, and they're offering you a job and starting the next day?
Yeah.
You don't have any place to stay or anything?
No, nothing.
I mean, you don't know how you're going to take care of yourself or anything?
No, start the next day.
What kind of salary did they talk?
$90 a month.
How would that compare with the factory job? Would that be a lot better?
No, I think factory jobs would have paid more, you know, but this was salary, $90 a month.
Were there any benefits to go with that?
Yeah, of course, after 3 months, you know, you got hospitalization and the benefits.
So they had some benefits even at that point?
Oh, yeah. So, anyway, we went home, and I had to, one thing they said I would have to be vaccinated. I had been vaccinated, but the scar didn't show, you know, and you used to have a scar when you were vaccinated.
A little round circle.
Yeah, a round circle, and it didn't show. So they said, well, since it doesn't show, we don't know whether it took or not, so you'll have to be vaccinated. So I went home, I had to go to the family doctor, and he vaccinated me, and I had to get my clothes together. And the next day, I took the interurban cars. There was a street, like
a streetcar from Fremont to...
Yeah, see, that went from Fremont. Well, it went from Toledo to Fremont and went on to Cleveland. And I took the interurban to Cleveland. There I had to change stations. There was another interurban that came down, and it stopped. Well, it went on to Canton, but one stop was right in front of Goodyear.
But this was like a streetcar?
Yeah, just a streetcar.
It wasn't a train?
Oh, no, just a streetcar. And
so electric, or it was on rails, or electric?
Yeah, electric. Yeah, the streetcars, you know.
Yeah.
So it stopped in front of Goodyear, and I got out with my suitcase.
And you still didn't have any place to stay, and you didn't know where you wanted to stay, right?
They had given me the name of somebody. They had the names of homes that
I see that people were putting up people,
you know. And I had gotten the day before when I was there. I had gone up on Goodyear Heights and got a place to stay.
I see.
So I knew where I was going to stay.
So you know where you were going to stay.
So I went in. I got here at noon. I got there at noon, and I went into the lobby there and left my suitcase. I checked them in with the police officer, and they took me out in the factory, and I started working. I was...
what were you wearing? Were you wearing a suit and tie? And how were you dressed?
I had a suit, you know, and tie. Yeah, I was dressed up. But so I started there 3 days before my 18th birthday.
So you were not even 18.
No. I started there on the 12th, and on the 15th was my birthday, so I started.
What was the weather like?
It was, I remember going home that it snowed, and in the Ford, it had the windshield that had a little crank on it, you know, and you had to do it.
You had to make it work.
Yeah, you had to do it by hand.
That must have been hard then.
Yeah,
traveling in snow.
I remember it was snowing, you know, and we had to keep cranking.
And like if you had to get in the mud, that was more slippery than it would be. Yeah, it was rough.
So anyway, it was, you know, things weren't like they are now. And
so what was the year again that you started to work there?
26.
1926.
1926, 3 days before my 18th birthday. And of course, as it turned out, I stayed there for 47 years. I was never laid off. And and the only thing I transferred from tires to Goodyear Zeppelin when they started the Goodyear Zeppelin Corporation, and that was by my own request, you know. And so I went over there and worked for Goodyear Zeppelin until they